This is the Audacity Show. I am your host, Mia Dunlap. This show is bringing you stories from young people who are under 30 and living their lives with audacity. This is the Audacity Show, and I am your host, Mia Dunlap. I want to introduce you to someone who is my friend and who is a founding principal in an elementary school. His name is Jaz Grant. Jaz is leading through his faith in an industry that asks him and asks all of us to leave our faith at the door. Jaz Grant, hello.
Hi, Mia.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Just a couple of years ago, we were in the same school teaching together.
Teaching before reading third grade.
I know, reading, and now you're a founding principal of a school. What does that mean?
I mean, I think that for me, it's a dream come true, you know? And I think that I feel like I'm operating my calling, and in this season, and in this place and time, I'm exactly where God would have me to be.
What does it mean to have a founding school?
I think for me, it's like new possibilities, right? It's to imagine something new, something that my own, something that I get to create with my co-leader and my teachers. And like we're thinking about like how can we make our mark in this very new community, you know? Like what can we bring that other schools may not bring? How do we want to be different? Where's our place in history?
Wow. So how are you using faith to influence that though?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when you think about faith, I think that like I'm redefining faith and like what does that look like? And I think that the reason why I'm still able to work in higher education 7 years later is because of faith. Right, there's a certain optimism that I have because I understand like I'm working up under a different power, that power that sustains me, a power that keeps me, and a power that will ultimately allow me to reach, me and my students reach the goal that we also have to reach.
And we don't hear a lot about people staying in charter schools 7, 8, 9, 10 years, but you're saying the thing that's sustaining you is God and the way that you're redefining what faith is.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm thinking about when we used to teach together and on the same grade team, what did you think then and how has your faith transformed now? Yeah,
I think that you remember some conversations that we had, right? I think like being in New York and like thinking about like, you know, I come from like a primarily like very religious family, right? And I think that like being in New York has allowed me to redefine faith for myself, right? What does it mean? And so for so many of my years of my life, it may have looked like, yes, you go to church every Sunday, right? And sometimes like I would judge myself or condemn myself because like, oh, Josh, you didn't go to church this Sunday, right? But is that really what church is? Is that really what it means to be a follower of Christ? And I think that like what I've come to learn and understand that a lot of you being a follower of Christ or being able to call yourself a Christian, it's like, what do you do in your daily actions? Right? Not only your daily actions, but your daily interactions with people. For me, like the families that I meet, the kids that I get to interact with, right? And so when you think about like Jesus and Christ himself, he never left someone's presence or entered someone's presence and then left and they still be the same, right? And so for me, like that is my calling. That is like what I'm called to do.
All over my body. Oh my gosh.
You know, and so I think that like that is what it means. It's like your daily interactions.
Yeah. It's so powerful that I hear you saying leaving a person better than they were before you interacted with them. Wow. Why do you believe so many millennials have left the church?
I mean, I think that the experience of the church, right? The experience of the church can be life-changing. And I think sometimes that can be a positive interaction or a negative interaction. And it's like, it's not lost upon me that like in the church there's a lot of hypocrisy, right? Of like what do we accept and what don't we accept? But when God teaches us to love everyone and not to condemn, you know, thou who is without sin cast the first stone.
Right.
But I think that like a lot of personal beings get in the way of that, and so for some people, sometimes like it's discouraging, right? How do you like accept people where they are and help them to be better without them feeling condemned, like pushing them away?
I mean, we can dig into this because you and I have had some conversations.
Right, absolutely.
And I don't think I consider myself a person who's left the church.
Yeah.
I grew up religious also, and not because my parents took me to church, but because I wanted to know God for myself. My parents didn't even go to church.
Right.
And so I started going, and now I don't go, but I don't see or experience myself as having left the church. But we are, in our own ways, redefining faith.
And I think a lot of times when we say we've left the church, it's not necessarily like, yes, we may not go as much, but it's like something in our thinking has evolved.
Okay.
Right? Like I still deeply believe in God.
Right.
You know, and so, and I still believe in like the fundamental practices of Christianity.
Yeah.
And to me, like that is love.
Yeah.
God is love. That's what he represents.
Yeah.
And so in so many ways, that's what I want to represent.
So when you're showing up with your families and you're showing up with your kids, you're thinking about God, and you're thinking about God in the sense of God is love.
Right.
That's
right.
powerful.
God is love. God is patient. God is forgiving. And it's like so many of these traits that also co-align with the work that I do, especially working with kids and families in urban communities.
So then what do you say to people who say to you that God doesn't belong in schools?
I say that for me, it's like, who does God represent to you? And so if for me, God represents love, joy, happiness, forgiving spirit, patience, then I would argue that it does belong in schools. Teachers have to love their kids, principals, like we have to love each other. You have to be forgiving to yourselves, right? You're gonna make mistakes each and every day.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's
And my God, do you have to forgive kids?
Yes, you do have to forgive kids, right? You know, and sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
But you have to say like, you know, what would Christ do in this situation? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does your childhood impact your leadership?
Yeah. I think that like a lot of my success, right, isn't by part. I think about like my mom. I think about like my grandmother who recently passed. And I think that like one is like sacrifice, right? To be a good leader, to impact others, there has to be a level of sacrifice that allows you to make the right impact that you want to make. And I'm also thinking about in the same vein of sacrifice, like my mom had me when she was 17, right? And so she had to make a choice early on, like, am I gonna be a great mother for my kids? And I mean, sacrificing some of my own self-joy. And that's what I watched her do, right? I can say that I was there when my mother graduated from college.
Wow.
You know, I really remember her sitting up at the desk 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, finishing her homework.
Wow.
Because like that's how dedicated she was, right? She had to still work. She still had kids to take care of. But she did what she had to do that ultimately not led to her self-success, but like a better life for her children.
My God.
Yeah.
And not only a better life for you, but you are a graduate of Morehouse.
Yes.
You Morehouse man.
College. Yes. Come on.
So you've created an entirely, I don't know if it's a different life. You've created a life for yourself.
Yeah. I think my mom would also tell you this, like I've always been like ambitious, right? Like I've always wanted more, always wanted to do more. Right, and I like even now people keep asking me like, you know, what's next? I can't say that I know, but I know it's like God has more for me. Like there is more that I can do.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's just like taking it one day at a time.
What is your dream job?
My dream job would be somewhere back in Texas. And I think that I've been so wonderful to work for the organization that's like gave me this opportunity to be like, what can I do independently? Like how can I continue to create a brand in a different way that still reaches kids in urban communities?
Wow. I just have to say, I'm just so proud of you. I watched you. I was a teacher when you came in as what was it called?
Co-teacher.
No, you were an intern for.
Oh, no, sorry, STL.
Yeah, you were summer. So I watched you when you were a summer teaching fellow, and I was a teacher.
Yeah.
And so I'm amazed at what you can accomplish, and you've been so intentional in your work, and you have always said it's been God. And it's really interesting to me how God has morphed for you in your evolution of thinking. How do you want your students to experience God in school?
I think that it's like this idea of love, right? I want every day, like I shake my students' hands, they need to feel loved, they need to feel seen, they need to feel heard, and understand that like everyone who is a part of this community, like our school community, their families, like we love you. We want to see you do the best you can. We want to see you do well. And so that is why we're going to continue to push you, right? And I'm already just starting to see like in so many ways how like kids, like I like watch one of my students as he get ready to leave. We like dismissed from the auditorium each day. Like, he just goes around like just start hugging people, right? To me, like that is love. And like how do we keep that going as our school grows? that like kids just feel love. Like
Yeah.
God is love, and I just want to keep pressing that. And love manifests its ways in different ways, but like again, your experience has changed for the better.
Yeah, that's so powerful, Jazz. So what do you say, what nuggets or gems do you want to leave with people, either about your experience as a founding principal or in your faith?
Yeah. I think that the quote that is on my Facebook, that is on my Instagram, the quote that changed my life was, to hell with your career, what is your calling? And I think like that is why I am where I am today, right? Like I was a freshman thinking, I'm gonna major in chemistry, I'm gonna go and be a doctor, right? Like that wasn't my calling. And for like a long time, I already knew I was supposed to be working with kids. There were so many signs before that, but because I was chasing like money and like other careers that I thought would be more fruitful in a way, I was like running for that. And so what I would tell someone is like, you need to find your calling, because when you find your calling, you operate within that calling, everything else will come.
And what's come for you?
I think like possibilities, right? Like if you would have asked me years ago, would I be opening up or launching a new school in Brooklyn, New York? The answer would have been no. Like this is not something that I thought of, but because like I just stayed, right? I remain faithful.
Yeah.
This is the experience that God has for me.
Yeah, that's powerful. I keep getting chills all over my body and listening to you. I'm gonna say a few statements and I want you to finish them with the thoughts that come up for you.
Okay.
My faith is
Unshakable.
There is power in. Go ahead and say
I'm
it.
sorry. There is power in His name.
I belong to.
Others.
My mother is.
Audacious.
What I wish for the world is.
I wish for a world that Black and brown children receive a quality education that allows them to have an equal playing field.
I have the audacity to.
Operate in my calling.
I'm so happy for you, Jazz. Are there any last things you want to share before we
No,
leave?
I just want to say, thank you for the opportunity, the invitation. Like I've watched this show several times and I'm so excited to have a seat at the couch, a seat on the couch, a seat at the table.